From 1935 to 1943, the Works Progress Administration helped to improve communities and provide jobs across the United States.
When times were tough, they thank God for the WPA.
Today we learn how the WPA and Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal affected the Valley in Flashback.
Flashback is sponsored by Hickey Metal Fabrication.
You may have seen these markers in various places throughout the Mahoning Valley, such as this viaduct on Shenley Avenue, this pavilion in Crandall Park, or this retaining wall at the corner of West and Mahoning Avenues. These are just a few of the many projects initiated by the Works Progress Administration, or WPA, during the Great Depression as part of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
FDR is one of those people, you either loved him or you hated him. There's no middle ground.
The New Deal was put in place when FDR took office in 1933. It was dedicated to providing relief and recovery efforts to those devastated by the Great Depression.
Historians are going to debate the legacy of the New Deal, inside out, backwards, and upside down, depending on what your bias is. But I think if you looked at raw numbers, and you look at unemployment figures, well, maybe it didn't do as much as some historians say.
But Donna de Blasio, professor of history at Youngstown State University, says what's more important than the numbers is that the New Deal gave people hope.
And it looked like they were doing something, and people were getting work, and there was energy there. And I think that's truly, I think that's the heart of the New Deal.
When the New Deal was implemented, it was the PWA, or Public Works Administration, that oversaw the bulk of the efforts, providing funding to state governments and private interests. In 1935, Phase 2 of the New Deal began. In April of that year, Congress passed the Emergency Relief Appropriation Act, creating the WPA.
PWA did not hire people directly. It gave money to the states and to companies to hire people. So it's a little bit different than the WPA, which basically hired people directly to work for the government.
The PWA was mostly tied to larger scale projects such as hospitals, schools, dams, and housing, while the WPA focused more on community-oriented endeavors like public parks, sidewalks, post offices, and roadway improvements.
So you just have to look around. They did high school stadiums, like I said, post offices galore. They are all over the place. And particularly what's really neat about the post office, not only the buildings, but the murals that are inside of those buildings. And they're just stunning. I mean, they're beautiful examples of that type of art from that period.
One of those murals can still be found inside the Hubbard Post Office. It depicts men at work in the steel industry.
A lot of them are, particularly in this area, celebrate the legacy of the steel industry and work, which I think is really important. This work that these people did day in, day out that built this area was really important, and it's something we need to celebrate.
In addition to building and construction, WPA provided jobs for teachers, writers, actors, historians, and artists.
The whole idea, too, was that you don't want people on, as they used to call it, they're on relief. The payment was higher than it would be just as a handout, but less than you would make in private sector work.
Other projects taken on by the WPA include this colonial revival-style building at 132 South Broad Street in Canfield and the Youngstown Municipal Airport in Vienna Township. Before it disbanded in 1943, the WPA employed over 8.5 million people across the country. During the New Deal era, the WPA workers in Ohio built or improved over 12,000 miles of roads, constructed over 600 public buildings, and more than 300 bridges.
It's really important work, and I think it's the New Deal is a really good example. Well-planned programs can work between the public and private sectors.
You can read more in Dan O'Brien's story in the mid-June issue of the Business Journal, out now. Click the subscribe tab to order your copy today.